Hi, I'm Carlene with Embroidery Library. If there's one thing we know, it's that you love rope baskets. They're easy and fun to make, and there are so many ways to get creative and showcase your favorite machine embroidery designs. In this video, we'll show you 6 techniques to add a little something extra to your next rope basket. If you haven't watched our first rope basket video yet, go do that now. We'll put a link in the description. That'll show you the basics of how to sew and embroider your rope basket. Then come back here. You can use just one of these ideas or mix and match a few to really personalize your project. Instead of stitching directly onto the bottom of your rope basket, you can stitch on a piece of fabric and then add that to your basket. The nice thing about this is that you can choose embroidery designs that you might not want to stitch directly onto the rope, like designs with more stitch-filled areas or even very light and open designs. Start by picking out your embroidery design. I'm going to use this orange wreath. Print out a template of the design at actual size, and then figure out how much larger you want your fabric to be. I'd recommend leaving at least ½ an inch all the way around. The design I'm using is just under 7 inches wide, so I'm going to make my fabric about 8 inches wide. Next, you're going to want to find yourself a template, or make one. I'm going to use this 8-inch hand embroidery hoop as a guide. You can also find something that's the right size and shape, like a plate or a bowl, and trace it onto paper to make a pattern. Once you've got your template, you'll want to construct the base of your rope basket so it's just a little bit bigger than that, with about 2 extra passes of rope around the edge. Check out our previous rope basket video if you need to learn how to do this. Then you'll want to embroider your fabric. Since the fabric will be laying very flat on the basket, you'll really want to minimize any puckering. So choose a fabric that's on the sturdy side, and use a medium weight cutaway stabilizer, stuck to the back with temporary spray adhesive. Embroider your design, but don't cut away the stabilizer on the back. Center your template over your design, then trace around the shape and cut it out. Spray the back of your shape with temporary spray adhesive, then center it over your rope circle. You can use pins at an angle to hold the edges down. Now we're ready to sew our fabric circle onto our rope. Use a zigzag stitch and stitch all the way around very slowly and carefully. This will look the cleanest if you keep the zigzag mostly on top of the fabric, with the stitching on the right just barely peeking over the edge. When you're starting and stopping your zigzag, you have a couple of options. You can backstitch, or you can choose not to backstitch and then pull the thread through and tie it off. This way will look a little bit neater, but either way works. It's up to you. And we're all done. After your fabric is added, keep sewing your rope to build the walls of your basket just like you normally would. Another way you can change up the base of your basket is to make a different shape. Making an oval is really simple. I'll show you how. Instead of starting our basket with a spiral, we're going to start it with a line of rope and then wrap it around. The only real trick here is the planning. If you want your oval to be a specific shape that matches the design, start by printing out a paper template. You can sketch the rough shape that you want, and then use a ruler and a round object like a hand embroidery hoop to clean up the shape. Find the center of your round object and draw a line through that point on each end of your oval. Take note of the distance between the 2 lines. Take that measurement and add about 15 to 20% to get the starting length of rope for your oval. I started with a measurement of 4¼ inches, so I'm going to round up to 5 inches. If you don't add a little bit to this measurement, you're going to end up with an oval that's shorter and wider than what you were looking for, because the tension is different on the curved ends versus the straight edges. Take your rope and fold it over at the length you chose, mine is 5 inches, and then pin it together. Take your rope and place it under the presser foot of your sewing machine. Just like if you're making a circle, you're going to want the long end of the rope to come up and over to the right, so that the base will grow on the left of the machine. When you start stitching, keep the 2 lengths of rope as close together as possible. If you end up with a gap, you can always come in later with a hand sewing needle and take a couple of stitches to tighten it up. When you get to the cut end of the rope, wrap the rope around, keep it nice and snug, and keep on stitching. When you're turning a corner like this, you'll probably want to use the hand wheel to take 1 stitch at a time. You'll need this less and less as your oval gets bigger. Keep on sewing until your oval is as big as you want it. Then you can embroider it and continue your basket however you like. This next tip might be my favorite. You can add a little color to your basket by wrapping sections of your rope with fabric. If you're going to add fabric to your basket, it's best to soak away the water-soluble stabilizer right after you embroider your base, instead of waiting until your basket is done. I've already done that with this one. Pick out some quilter's cotton that you want to use for your fabric wrapping. You can match your fabric to your embroidery thread colors to make your basket look nice and coordinated. First, I'm going to cut my fabric into 1-inch bias strips. I know you quilters can be very precise about your bias strips, but for this project, you really don't need to be too picky. As long as the fabric strip has a little bit of stretch to it, that's all you need. Take a square or a rectangle of fabric and make sure the edges are cut straight. Fold it diagonally so the edges line up. Then fold it again so that diagonal folds are stacked on top of one another. And I'm going to fold it over again and wrap around the free end. Use your ruler as a guide to cut off those folded edges. Then, use the ruler and cutting mat to cut your strips 1 inch wide. Repeat this to make bias strips out of all the fabrics you want to use for your project. Take a few of your strips that you want to start with and spray them with temporary spray adhesive. When you're at the point in your basket where you want to start adding fabric, just take one of your strips that has adhesive on it and wrap it around your rope diagonally. Make sure the edges overlap and try to keep the angle and the tension even. When you get to the end of one strip, just overlap the next one by about a 1/2 inch and keep wrapping. You'll only want to wrap a couple of strips at a time, then keep sewing before you add more. After you've added all the fabric you want, you can just continue stitching and then end your basket with a simple loop or add one of the finishing touches that we'll talk about next. Handles are super easy to add to your rope basket. Here's how you do it. When you get to the point in your basket where you want your first handle to start, backstitch a couple of times to reinforce the stitching. Take an air erase pen and mark on your basket how wide you want your handle to be. Then mark the size of your handles on the opposite side of the basket too. Take your rope and bend it outward, then bring it back to where you added your mark. Pin it in place. Start stitching right after your marking and backstitch a couple of times to reinforce it. Sew all the way around until you get to your next mark and then backstitch again. Then bend your rope outward to make your second handle. Try to keep it even with the first one. Then backstitch again and keep on sewing your basket. When you get back around to the first handle, just follow the new line of rope to add layers to your handle. You can do this a few times to make the handles as wide as you like. And that's all you have to do to add handles to your baskets. When you're ready to end your basket, instead of just cutting the rope, try adding a little spiral for decoration. After you finish constructing your basket, cut off your rope and leave a long tail. 20 inches is a good starting point. This will make a coil a bit over 2 inches wide. You can always start with your rope a little bit longer and cut it off later if it's too much. We're going to make this coil just like we do when we make the base of a basket. Take the end of your rope and coil it up tightly. If this coil is a little bit bigger than you'd like, you can just cut off some rope and try again. We're going to want to leave about 2 inches of rope free between the coil and the main basket. When you have your coil the way you want it, pin it together. Zigzag stitch across the center of your coil to hold it together. The last thing we'll want to do is hot glue our coil in place. The rope between your coil and your basket is going to give you some freedom to place your coil exactly where you want it. Just add your glue to the back of the coil and then press it in place until it cools. And that's it, our coil is done. Our last tip is covering the bottom of the basket. We're using cork fabric, but you could also use another non-fraying fabric like felt if you like. This is super simple. We're just going to cut out a piece of cork to the right shape and stick it to the bottom. If you already have a template that's the right size, you can use that. If not, you can just trace the bottom of your basket onto a piece of paper and use that as your pattern. Spray your cork shape with temporary spray adhesive and then stick it to the bottom of your basket. The last thing we're going to want to do is hot glue the edges in place. Peel back a little bit at a time and add some hot glue around the very edge. Then press it in place until it cools. You can flip the basket and press it onto the table to make sure this stays flat. And there you have it, 6 ideas to make your next embroidered rope basket extra special. Which one is your favorite? What else do you like to do to dress up your rope baskets? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for even more great ideas for machine embroidery projects. Thanks for watching.